Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we'll be talking about the spell Thorn Whip. Yeah,
Same brain.
nice. All right, what does this one do?
This is a cantrip. This is a druid artificer cantrip, which I think is weird that it's an artificer cantrip, but whatever. It's got takes an action. It's 30-foot range. You whip something and deal a d6 piercing to it. If you hit, then you yank it towards you 10 feet. That's it. That's the whole spell. Thanks for coming and listening. That's Thorn Whip. It doesn't have to be larger or smaller. While it doesn't seem like all that complicated, while it doesn't seem like it's a particularly powerful effect, Thorn Whip is kind of the only thing in the game at this tier that gives you a repeatable pull effect, and that is surprisingly useful.
Okay.
Like,
What are we
this
using it
is
for?
well, druids like to make area of damage effects. Druids like to make area of control effects, and wizards like to do area of control effects too. This is a rare tool that you'll bust out alongside like a moving flaming sphere, where you'll move a flaming sphere onto somebody else and then pull someone else into it with a thorn whip. This is one of those kind of effects that if you position really well and get your enemies where you want them and can predict where you think they're going to be moving towards, thorn whip is a tool that kind of lets you potentially adjust where they're going to be to double up the effectiveness of more powerful magic. Outside of that case, though, it's still just a nifty little thing to have that engages with the world in a way that I think it's almost like a tutorial in the 3D Dungeons and Dragons environment. This is sort of a using the world around you in ways that you're not necessarily expecting to, based off of someone getting pulled into something over 10 feet, right? If even like a simple bar fight, if you throw them somebody that's on the other side of a table and you throw them into it, that makes the table tip. Maybe they fall face forward and go prone on the table. Maybe you have some sort of expansion on that with your DM that makes the world feel more engaged in than just 10 feet empty spaces in a white room. And I like that this spell does that. I like that the spell asks you, is there a balcony nearby? Am I going to throw somebody off of a cliff here? Or should I jump off, thorn whip somebody on my way down and then turn to a bird and fly off? Like, there's a lot of neat little things that Thorn Whip can help facilitate, just because, again, it's a really cheap way to have a 10-foot move option.
Yeah, then I mean, there's of course there's the option if you got other damaging things going on, pull them into the fire, pull them into the blade barrier, whatever. Um, Now let me ask you this: if somebody's engaged in combat and you pull them out, do those other creatures get attacks of opportunity on this guy, or no? Or because
Unfortunately not.
no? All right. Yeah.
The only
Still.
time attacks opportunities happen is when a creature
Yes.
willingly moves itself. Any kind of other movement doesn't improve attacks opportunity, which frankly is kind of lame. I think it'd be really cool if Thorn Whip could be a way that you could get your allies to use reactions. It adds some more collaborative elements to the game. It'd be really good. It'd be way more powerful than it is currently. Although it does kind of ask you to like position weirdly and like do some flanking stuff. And I don't know. I think that would make for a really engaging kind of game if you are up to. If you as a DM out there are thinking like, I wish my players would cooperate more, maybe consider making some of those changes. Maybe consider letting your martial characters get attack opportunity whenever your caster characters move things out of their attack range.
I don't know.
Then you
That
could,
might be more than a cantrip's worth of power there.
yeah, maybe that is very good. I think that if something is good because players are working together, then it
Yeah.
justifies existing at a cheap space. And I think that would be the case here. But again, that's hypothetical. That's not what it actually does. What it actually does doesn't offer the opportunity attack. So not a concern.
That's fine though. I mean, it's still uh one of the better cantrips, I would imagine. This is
Yeah, I think this might be.
there's the I mean, yeah, like I was saying before, you pull somebody into a damaging area, or you pull somebody just shy of being able to run up and attack one of your buddies or something, you know. There's all kind of you know, what is it called? Area control shit. Ah man.
Yes, that's it.
I
That's
shouldn't
what they call it in the book. Area control shit. That's just what's written. The whole section title. So I will say this: 30-foot range is less than you'd think, and there are going to be awkward times where you're not going to get in a position where you're able to pull people into things. Getting because functionally, whatever you want to pull somebody into, you have to get between you and them within 30 feet. So it has to be very specific, and you have to be relatively quick. So this spell will reward builds that like to take things like the mobile feat. This build will, like, if you're multi-classing rogue or take this on a rogue, being able to dash for free is really good with Thorn Whip if the goal is to get people to start their turn and enter into a space for the first time a damaging area, which is mostly how those damaging areas work. It's still, while that, I think that is the use case of this in the upper tiers. In the lowest tiers, this is often going to feel just like a d6 damaging cantrip that sort of, again, interacts with the world in a slightly different way. You'll see sometimes where I think there's another interview we have talking about Thorn Whip on the channel where the person was swinging from a chandelier with a Thorn Whip. That's a really creative way to use it. It's a really cool way to have the Indiana Jones whip in your back pocket. And with DMs that are flexible and are open to reinterpretation and adjusting how spells function on base levels, this is a really interesting tool to have at your disposal. A Thorn Whip that you can just throw out into this existing space and use to do things is really cool. Not what's written, but it's something that you can think about incorporating if you're the kind of DM that wants to encourage magic as magic, like a high variance kind of not necessarily even unstable, but able to be manipulated element of the game as opposed to a rules mechanic, which is what it's normally what we talk about.
Even as just rules mechanic, I think this is a fantastic spell.
For a damaging cantrip, this is probably one of the best.
Well, as a damaging cantrip, not, but for one, then yeah, perhaps.
I'll push back there. I actually think so. The damaging cantrips that people tend to take are Firebolt, which is a D10.
Yeah.
This is a D6.
Yeah.
Firebolt will never pull somebody 10 feet. Firebolt will sometimes do 1 to 6 damage. And in all of those cases, Thorn Whip just comes with upside.
All right, well, not if you don't need to move somebody 10 feet.
Sure. And that's,
and you're pulling them 10 feet toward you. There's a lot of times you don't want to do that.
Sure. I don't think that's even that true. I think if something's within 30 feet of you,
if somebody wants to kill me, I don't want to pull them 10 feet toward me.
I promise you, pulling something 10 feet towards you is not going to change the distance the amount of actions it takes to get to you. If you are, unless there's some really wacky difficult terrain set up, there's going to be next to no instances where you moving something within 30 feet of you to 20 feet of you, or 20 feet of you to 10 feet of you, is going to reasonably change the outcome of you getting punched or not. It's going to take a 30-foot move,
it absolutely
and you're still screwed.
No, because you do that, they're 30 feet away from you, you Thorn Whip them, now they're 20 feet away from you, you use your move action to move 30 feet away.
Then you got a 50-foot cushion, which is the exact same as a dash anyway.
Yeah, but they can't attack you if they're dashing.
Yeah, and regardless as to whether or not you Thorn Whip them, they still have to dash to get to you, right? The Thorn Whip's 10-foot movement there isn't making them able to hit you all of a sudden.
All right. All I'm saying is, if the guy that wants to kill me is 20 feet away from me, I'd prefer him to be 30 feet away from me. If those are my options.
I think in the game strategy perspective, I'm right, and I think in the I don't want the belligerent bugbear closer to me perspective, you're definitely right.
All right. Well, all I'm saying is, all right. I'm absolutely not saying this isn't useful. I'm saying, this is as a damaging cantrip alone. Yeah, it's not one of the better ones. There are times, if you don't need somebody 10 feet closer to you, then it's not better.
So, yes, in that exact scenario, in a scenario where you don't want someone to be 10 feet closer to you, it isn't great.
Those are most scenarios.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are going to be many instances where moving someone 10 feet closer to you is not going to put them in threat range, and it's not going to be a big issue. But outside of that, regardless of which one of us is correct there, one thing I will say about cantrips and specifically, if you are playing the druid, wizard, cleric, upper tier, in fights, even mid tier, we're talking like 9th level-ish, even past 5th level, honestly, if you're in combat with things that are threatening, you really don't want to be casting cantrips. Cantrips are lower powered options than you have, and I promise most of the encounters that you're going to be facing are going to be designed to make you expend some quantity of resources. You would normally rather be spending your upper level spell slots engaging with the fight than not. The reason I think Thorn Whip is one of the best damage cantrips is it lets you extend the power of your spell slots to deal more damage. So if you Flaming Sphere with a second level spell slot, having Firebolt at your disposal is going to be doing less damage on average than pulling them into the Flaming Sphere. If you have Blade Barrier at your disposal, Firebolting them is going to do less damage than pulling them into the Blade Barrier, etc., etc. Now, that doesn't mean you're still going to want to have encounters where you're firing Thorn Buff every round. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you're going to be casting a cantrip in the upper tiers, having one that interacts with the spells to make them better is way more valuable than Firebolt, is way more valuable than Poison Spray. The dice size there is negligible compared to the extra dice you're getting off of the other conditional effects that this offers. The conditional effect is so valuable at dealing damage that the other damaging upsides of the other cantrips that you really don't want to be casting at that tier basically fall away.
Yeah, this feels like lawyer talk, but you're right. And sustained.
We did it. I've convinced you once again that this is quite a good damage cantrip.
Yeah. It's all right. I was talking about damage alone in and of itself.
I'm talking about damage output, baby.
Yeah,
we're talking about round-to-round damage in a bigger context.
You're right. You've lawyered your way into my heart.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Chose the wrong profession.
Yeah, me too. But at higher cantrips, that's higher levels. That's another thing though. This one can shine at higher levels. Cantrip. It's fun to be able to spend. When you're in the higher levels, it's fun to be able to spend a cantrip and be really effective.
Yes. And that's not. There are very few cantrips in the game that offer that kind of utility.
Yeah.
Mage Hand kind of sustains its usability through the game. Most of the time, you'll still have some pretty powerful things you can do with Mage Hand, just because it's useful to have a remote hand to grab things with, right?
Sure.
Thorn Whip has, I think, a better upside when it comes to like navigating combat than any other cantrip does in the upper tiers, save Eldritch Blast builds. But that's like investing resources into a cantrip. I think Eldritch Blast kind of stops being comparable as a cantrip once you start sinking invocations into it. So.
All right. Well, that was.
All that being said, this is still probably just a 3.
Really?
Yeah. It's very fine. There's realistically, this has the most potential to be very usable in the upper tiers. And the lower tiers is still fine. This is a cantrip you're pretty excited to use, pretty excited to pick up. It makes Druids have something interesting to engage the world with that I'm happy to get, and there aren't a lot of other options that do it. At the same time, this isn't breaking any encounters. This isn't putting out Burning Hands damage. This isn't wildly reshaping how the DM has to think about things. Can be a bigger piece to a complex puzzle on its own. It's fine.
Man, I was all ready to give it a 5 based on your arguments, and then but yeah, your score has put me into doubt. I'm gonna give it a 4, but just the versatility and the longevity of the tiers at which it can be useful. But
I will to its longevity. I will say that it is more usable in the upper tiers than most other cantrips, but it's still not something you're using very regularly, especially like even the low tiers. This is something you're going to bust out once or twice every long rest. That is way more than a lot of other cantrips get to say. And that's where I think, because it's so consistent at doing that, that's great.
All right. Well, still, 4 it is. And that was Thorn Whip. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.